Let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Prabhat Kaunanayaka, a medical doctor by training, but at the moment, an HR professional and HR developer by practice. For about 5 years ago, I founded the Leaders of Tomorrow program, by which we have helped almost 3,000 youth to develop themselves as leaders and to face their life with some better and new perspectives. We had our last, this is normally conducted as a outdoor workshop. We held our last session on the 21st of February, and we were planning to have the next session on the 15th of March. And we all know what happened after that. So we have not been able to conduct this program, and we thought, while continuing our efforts to convey the message of personal leadership to our youngsters, we should do something to help them during this period of lockdown. That is why we are coming to you online to continue our journey of Leaders of Tomorrow, but in a different way, with different topics and with some different ideas. Now let me start off with a story. Once, a little boy was playing outdoors and found a fascinating caterpillar. He carefully picked up the caterpillar and took it home. He asked his mother if he could keep it. And she said he could, if he would take good care of it while the creature was in his custody. The boy said yes, and he actually did. He watched the caterpillar grow and get into a cocoon for the last stage of its development. One day, a small hole appeared in the cocoon, and the butterfly slowly started to emerge from the cocoon. At first, the boy was excited to see what was happening. But soon, that excitement turned into concern, because he saw the butterfly was struggling so hard to get out. It looked desperate. It looked like it was making no progress. It was trying so hard. The boy was so worried that he decided to help. He got out a pair of scissors and stripped the cocoon to make the hole bigger so that the butterfly could come out. And of course, the butterfly came out quickly. The boy was surprised, though, to find that the butterfly had a swollen body and a small, dry pair of wings. He hoped that the body would shrink and the wings would dry out, enlarge and expand, but neither happened. The butterfly spent the rest of its life crawling around with a swollen body and dry wings. It could never fly. If we think, why was the butterfly not able to fly? In fact, the butterfly struggled to push its way through the tiny opening is the nature's way of pushing out the fluid in its body into the wings so that the wings will expand and the butterfly will be able to fly. The struggle is the nature's way of making the butterfly strong enough to fly. Without the struggle, the butterfly would never ever fly. You, my dear children, do not need someone's help to cut open your cocoons to come out. You can and you should do it yourselves. All you need is a little bit of help and the right condition to be able to do so. If all of you have what it takes to succeed in whatever you do, that is going to be the theme of the discussion today. Empowering the next generation. This is the title of the discussion. So what is empowerment anyway? One of the dictionaries defined empower as to give someone authority or power to do something. It is not doing it for them, but giving the knowledge, skills, confidence, and of course the courage to enable them to do it themselves. Just like the butterfly, we need challenges to realize how strong we are. We need obstacles to realize how badly we want to travel in our path. And we need problems to solve how capable we are. Now I can connect the title to the discussion in two ways. Even though all the adults here in the audience can learn a great deal, the content is developed with the youngsters in mind. So we are doing this to empower our future generation. That is one connection. The second connection is the panelists. They are young and they are the next generation. So we are empowering them to be leaders in their own rights. I have with me 3 young achievers who have achieved many things. And more than that, they have a story to tell. You will hear about their challenges, their failures, and their triumphs. You will hear how they swam upstream against common beliefs. And while the speeches are being conducted, if you have any question for the speakers or for me, you can type your questions very briefly, of course, in the chat panel with your name and school or the workplace clearly, so that I can direct them to the speakers at the end. So you can use the chat panel to type in any question you might have. Please make sure you type your name and your school or the workplace, and then very briefly type out your question so I can take it up at the end. So I welcome all of you to relax, sit back, and enjoy the next 90 minutes where we are going to listen to some wonderful stories of some wonderful young achievers. Let me move on to our first speaker, Asel Jatunarachchi. Asel, a student of D.S. Senanayake College, was fascinated by the environment and biology since a very young age. This gave him an ambition to become a doctor. Achieving his ambition, last year he got through his A-levels with flying colors, being ranked 4th in Colombo district in biology stream. Coming from a family of engineers, he is now awaiting university admission to become a doctor. So I warmly welcome Asel Jatunarachchi to share his story of competing with myself. Over to you, Asel.
Thank you very much, Dr. Prabhat, for that wonderful introduction, and a warm welcome for all of you who are listening with us today. So competition. This is something we have been doing ever since we were born. At school, we were competing for exams, competing in different kinds of sports and games. And then this competition continues in life. But when the word competition comes into our mind, what we think is fighting with others, right? Even in a sport, you fight with others and you try to win and you try to get the first place and go home with the trophy. So that's what we mostly think about. And being the class first, being the first and achieving high is very highly encouraged by our teachers and parents, right? But as my topic says today, competing with yourself is the key to success. So why do I say so? How is this important to us? Let me start with a small story from my childhood. At school, I was doing fairly well with my studies, but I was never very good at sports or any kind of athletic activities. But nevertheless, I took part. And one day when I was like in grade 5 or 6, we had this 100-meter race in our sports meet. And as usual, my best friend Ravindu won the first place and I was placed the last. So I went home, crestfallen and devastated, and told this to my dad and asked him, Dad, why does Ravindu always have to be the first and take the cup home? Why am I always the last? My father smiled at me and said, Son, Ravindu became first because he has a special talent towards sports and athletics. But don't worry, it does not mean that you are lazy or slow. You run this race at your own speed. Forget about the others, stop worrying about them. Focus on one thing, focus on yourself. For example, if it took 30 seconds for you to run 100 meters today, next time target to run it in 20 seconds. And if you do that, it does not matter whether you are the first or the last. You are anyway a champion because you have won this competition against yourself. So, this philosophy of competing with yourself was something that I grew up with because my parents always encouraged this concept. So, at school, while the other parents were forcing their kids to be the class first, they were finding out about the classes the class first went, they were finding about who got the highest marks for this subject, for that subject. My parents simply told me, don't worry about the others, you just do your best, and that's more than enough for us. So maybe because of this less pressure, I was always able to get fairly good marks in studies and enjoy life as I was doing my studies because there was very less pressure from my parents. So this system worked very well until I came to the A-level class. And now here, this is where everything changed. Because as most of you would have heard, people say that A-level is a very competitive exam. Only a limited number of students can go to university, only a limited number pass. So if you need to go to university, you better fight your battle hard. So that's what even our teachers try to drum into our heads. They always tasked us to be the class first, section first, grade first, district first. That was their mindset. So time passed on, and I had to give up most of my hobbies and other extra activities and prepare for the exam. But I gave my best and all my efforts to that, studied very hard, worked hard, and wrote the exam well. And I was fairly happy about my effort, and I was very happy that I had done a good job. And I was hoping that I'll be able to achieve my dream, which was becoming a doctor. So I was confident with what I have done. And even my parents and relatives and friends, they were having very high expectations. They were expecting me to pass with 3 years and maybe enter Faculty of Medicine in the University of Colombo. So they were having very high expectations. But I did not have that high, but I hope that I have done enough to enter medicine. So time passed and the results day came. And I was not that worried because I was expecting nothing but 3 A's and the ability to enter medicine. Because so far in my life, I worked hard, studied hard, at the end got good results. This was what has been happening for the past 13 years. So I did not think that this would be any different. But when the results came, I was devastated. I had got 2 A's and a B for physics. Worst of all, the required ECET score of entering medicine for that year was 1.90, but my ECET score was 1.89. So I had failed my dream by just 0.01 points. So I was so heartbroken thinking about that 0.01. That could have been one MCQ that had gone right. So I was really heartbroken and upset. And to make matters worse, whenever I called my friends and teachers to tell my results, I could hear their disappointed and dejected voices. talking to me in utter disbelief about this. And now I did not know what to do. All my friends who studied with me had got very good results and entered medicine, and here I was, just 0.01 points short. So I went to my parents as usual and told what was going on. And they said, "Son, so far in your life, what we always told you is forget about the others, just do your best, and that's more than enough for us. So here we know that you did your best, you worked very hard, and this result is enough for us. You have done well, because getting 2A's and 1B is not easy. But still, let's try it again. Let's forget about your friends who became successful. Let's forget about everything. You focus about yourself and let's try to make that be an A." So that was their simple advice. So after the greatest effort and a lot of willpower, I finally agreed with them and worked hard for another year. And this time, all my effort paid off when I got the results. It was in fact much better than even I had expected. I was the district first and the island 31st, and I was able to finally achieve my dream. So I believe that the secret of my success is not only hard work. The most important part is working my way in my style. Because what happens is in society, there are certain standards, right? For example, most adults and teachers tell you that the early morning is the best time to study. So they tell you get up early in the morning, maybe before 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock, and start studying because that's the best time of the day. But I, on the other hand, could not do this. What I did was I worked hard past midnight, maybe it was 1 or 2 when I went to sleep, and woke up late at 7 or 8. That was my style. So there is a style that will work for you, and it will be different from what most people think is right. For example, let's take a scenario like this. Think of an international buffet with a vast spread of grand food. So there are different people coming into it, right? So some people will eat just the main dishes. Some people will eat more desserts. Like that, different people will make different choices in life. They will make choices that will work for them. And think how these people will eat. Some of them will eat using spoon and fork. Some of them will eat using chopsticks. Some will use their hands. So likewise, there are different methods that we will do our work. That is working for us. And in the meantime, some people will eat very slowly, gossiping, and some people will eat very fast and leave early. Like that, some of us can work very fast, think very fast, and get the answers very fast for a problem, while some of us take our time. Yes, we are all different and do things in different ways. But in this buffet, just think, even though you eat slow, eat fast, eat with hands, eat with spoon and fork, eat all the food or just the desserts, at the end of the day, everyone eats and goes home happily with a full stomach, right? So at the end of the day, everyone is full and happy. So likewise, even though we will use different styles to work, different methods of work, we might have different subjects we like. At the end of the day, what matters is if we put our efforts into that, we can succeed and be happy. But think if there's a person in this buffet looking around, thinking about the other people eating, worrying that these people are eating too fast, I can't eat like this, and just looking around and worrying about the others, that person will go home hungry, right? So similarly, if you are too much focused about the other people and worry that they are better than you, smarter than you will never focus about yourself. You will never get the chance of developing your skills. So my advice to you is work your own way. Put your effort into it. Compete with yourself and try to make yourself better each and every day. That is the key to success, as I feel. Over to you, moderator Dr. Rabal.
Right. Can we have a round of virtual uploads? And those who don't know, this is how we upload in virtual settings, because all of you are muted. So this is we can see how the uploads are being done. So the whoever receives it can see it. Thank you very much. Right, Asen. So we won't let you go that easy. So I have a few questions for you. First of all, now, do you know that we live in an environment where there is an overwhelming tendency to compare yourself with others? As you said, everywhere we are competing with others. So can you elaborate a little bit? How were you able to create that mindset to compete with yourself?
Well, first of all, doctor, that was never a walk in the park for me. For example, if I take the time where I got 2 A's and 1B's, would not enter medicine, but all my friends who studied with me entered medicine. So there, this was particularly difficult to me because all the relatives and friends were always trying to compare us. You studied together, you did test together, you got same marks. How did this happen? So even I started thinking about this first, and I was so dejected, devastated. I couldn't think of even touching my books again. But then I thought, if I keep on thinking like this, if I keep on thinking about the others, I will not get anywhere. So I thought, okay, let me just put them out of my mind for this period of time and work my way and just try to make that be an A. So somehow or other, I try to focus on that. And then I thought of the other people. There were my parents, some other friends and cousins who had the same problem. They had first attempt, they could not achieve their goals. They did it again, maybe 2 times, 3 times, and then they are successful people now. So I took role models who are relevant to me rather than taking the friends who did the first time and achieved. I took role models that are more relevant. So those role models gave me strength rather than the other people who might have given me rejection. Those role models gave me friends. So that I believe is how I did it.
Right. Okay. Next, I would like to focus the attention to your parents. I know there are a lot of parents who are here in the audience. We hear stories of children getting into depression and even commit suicide because people around them labeling them as failures. Whenever they are not able to achieve something, they are labeled as failures. So in your case, it was totally opposite. So what support did you get from your parents when you more or less failed the first attempt?
Well, this whole concept about failing reminds me of a very interesting story. Once in a school in Singapore, on the Parents' Day, the principal sent a very unusual letter to all the parents. It said, "Today is the reports day. Your children will get different marks. But remember, for a student who is good at athletics and sports, his physical fitness will matter more than his physics marks. For a student who is good at music, his maths marks won't matter. A student who is good at science, his sports marks or his history marks won't matter. So don't try to measure your children by the standards of everyone, because your child is unique with his or her own set of talents." So that was a beautiful message by the principal. But unfortunately, even in our society, as you rightly said, doctor, we have this set of standards that everyone should be good at maths, everyone should be the first of the class, everyone should pass every exam. So we are always driven to that perfection. And if someone, even gets slightly below that high standards, they are considered as failures. Even in my case, even though I get 2 A's and 1B, my parents had a fairly difficult time convincing my relatives that I had not failed the exam. It was just a B, not a F. So that took a lot of convincing in part of my parents. So that's the mindset. But of course, it's difficult to change the mindset of the society, but as parents, you should always think your children have different talents, so don't give them pressure. Always help them. Do not compare them with other kids, because from experience, I know that that's one of the worst things. Think of this kid always first in the class, gets up at 2 a.m. If you hear this from a parent, you don't feel like studying because you feel like they love those kids more than that. We are worthless. So don't compare your children with anyone else. Let them be their own. Let them do things at their own pace and help them to do it. So that's the message I have to give.
And to add to that, some of you would know that, okay, as I said, he's not good in sports. He's not the athletic type. But there's another skill that he has. He's a very good speaker. And he's a award-winning speaker in Toastmasters contest. So all of us have different talents, different abilities. So that's how to look at it. Now, all of us know that we can't succeed always. That's the truth. But as you see, what are the hidden benefits of not succeeding always?
Well, so doctor, if again I go to back to that example where I had to do A-levels 2 times, I feel like had I passed the first time, everything would have been too easy. Because ever since my childhood, I was used to be in the maybe first or second of class. I was used to getting good marks. I did some work, got the results. Did some work, got the results. So even for you listening, you might feel like life is not hard because parents are helping you. You might, things might go well always. So we don't face that much of challenges. But in life, this is not always the case. Our perfectly made plans might just crumble out and we'll have to start from scratch again. Our hopes and ambitions might not always work out as we think. So this I experienced through this failure because this was the first time I could not achieve what I was hoping to. Yes, it was heartbreaking, it was difficult, but then I realized that failing is just a part of success. It's a pillar of success. So getting that experience, I feel, will help me even in life because nothing will work perfect. There will be obstacles, there will be problems. I'll have to change things. But yeah, so that was the best about failing and learning.
So we will let you go. Another round of virtual applause for Sel before we move on to the next speaker. Right. So next up in the panel is another successful individual who has excelled, not exactly in academics, but in a different field. So let me go on to our next speaker, who is Chamatka Jayasekar. Chamatka is a student of Musaeus College who is aspiring to be an environmental engineer and a successful businessman when he grows up. She has taken up many leadership roles in her life, from being the school captain or the head prefect of Musaeus College, deputy head prefect of her Dhamma school, and many different executive positions in many clubs and societies, including the Young Inventors Club, Environment Society, St. John's, and Girl Guiding, to name a few. Last year, she had the privilege of representing Sri Lanka in one of the most prestigious leadership camps in Girl Guiding held in Maldives. So to speak about leading her way into success, please welcome Chamatka Jayasekar. Chamatka, over to you.
Thank you, Doctor, for that wonderful introduction. After that, I think without saying anything else, I could straight away get in the topic. Leader. When you hear that word, what comes to your mind? Or rather, who comes to your mind? Is it Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, or Mahela Jayawardena? A leader doesn't always have to be leading a country or an organization or many people. It can be a simple thing like being the class monitor, a grade representative of some club or society, or even by being the older sibling of the family. And leadership doesn't always have to come with a label. Anyone can be a situational leader. Anyone who steps up and makes sure the right things happen in a given situation can be considered a leader. Now, in my 19 years of existence, I have experimented with different types of leadership. I have tried to be the bossy one who bosses everybody around. I have tried to let the team do whatever they want. I have tried to do all the work by myself because I felt the most responsible. But none of these things worked out. It ended up in a disaster because at the end of the day, either I was frustrated because I did everything, or they were frustrated because they just followed my orders. Now, I realized that something was so horribly wrong in a very early stage, somewhere around in grade 11, which I consider early. And what I did next was I took a step back. You know, I was that kind of annoying kid who always volunteered to be the group leader, volunteered to be the class monitor, to bring that chart, to make that thing that teacher's pet kind of kid in school. So I realized it's time to stop doing all of that. Because I personally felt that my friends were so used to me doing all the work, me taking the leadership, and I thought that this needs to stop. So I focused on being a follower rather than a leader. And during this time in my life, I realized the most important things that were needed for my journey as a leader. I realized how annoying it is when a leader gets to tell his idea first. How annoying it is when the leader gets all the credits. And how annoying it is when we just have to execute the leader's ideas. And how absolutely annoying when a leader acts like a total know-it-all. And the best part was, I realized that so many of my friends had amazing skills and talents. As you can see, it didn't take me long to realize what exactly a leader shouldn't be doing. And no wonder everything was going so horribly wrong, because those are the things that I have been doing all this time. So having realized all that, I was able to build a unique style of leadership for myself, which helped me greatly in overcoming the greatest challenge of my life so far, which was being the school captain of Musaeus College, commonly known as being the head prefect. So let me tell you 3 values that I really treasure in my style of leadership. My style of leadership was based on the bonds between the leader and the team, as well as within the team members. How much the team trusted the leader, how much they believed in the leader, and how much respect they had for the leader. And trust me, respect doesn't come with a title. It's something that you should earn. So moving on to the 3 main points of my leadership. First is gaining trust. And how I did this was by being absolutely honest with myself as well as my team. By always telling the truth and never giving false promises that I can't live up to. And when telling your true feelings, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can tell the truth to hurt someone, or you can tell the truth so that they understand and realize the situation. And the outcomes of these 2 methods are very different. One will cause to break trust, and one will cause to gain trust. And the second most important feature is always being there for your team. You have to understand that everybody is a human being, so they make mistakes and they have problems. Whether it is a personal problem or a problem within the team, if you're the type of leader who is willing to always listen and try to understand the situation. Just by doing that, you have won their hearts. And that will take you a long way in achieving your tasks. And the third aspect of being a leader I treasure the most is having the right amount of control within the team. Now, when you're achieving a task, you really need to focus on it. And also, you need to have some sort of discipline. And it's the leader's responsibility to maintain order. And when doing this, you have to be somewhat strict with your teammates. But if you are a type of leader who always yells at your team, I assure you, the only thing that's going to go in their head is, why on earth is this girl shouting? So instead, what you have to do is make sure you make them understand that they did a mistake, that they own up for the mistake, and that they feel guilty about the mistake. And make them feel that they need to put an effort, real effort, to not repeat the mistakes again. And when doing all of this, communication is the key. Like how I found my own unique way of leading, everybody has a unique leader inside of you. What you must do is take that leader out, discover the leader within you, and that will take you a long way in life. So I hope everybody here will be able to unleash that great leader within you. Over to you, moderator.
A round of applause for our speaker, Tamatka. Well done. Right. So for you also, I have a few questions. Now, first thing is now, I know that you are leading both senior and junior prefects, about close to 100 young girls who were in their teams, which would have been not that easy, a real challenge. So what's your experience of that particular challenge of leading this group of girls?
The biggest challenge, I would say, is when a bunch of prefects does something mischievous. Because it's always followed by some angry teacher asking me to meet them for inquiries. So when that happens, if I was so there were many occasions where someone did something mischievous and I had to go and answer teachers. So in that occasion, if I was the type of leader who adds hay to the fire and be like, yes, miss, I know they did something really wrong. They did this last week also. I've told them 100 million times not to do it, but they just doesn't listen. So if that is my attitude, I'm pretty sure my team would not want to work with me. I mean, I wouldn't want to have that kind of leader who just ratted out on you. So that's definitely not the way to approach that. But if you're the type of leader who would just blindly go and defend your team, just like, yes, I'm pretty sure, miss, you got it wrong. It definitely can't be them. I'm 100% sure my girls are angels. They don't do anything wrong. If I'm the type of leader to just whitewash and defend every wrong thing they do, well, my team might be happy temporarily. They'll be happy, very happy. But at the end of the day, it won't serve a purpose. I won't be a right leader if I don't admit mistakes and try to do something about it. So instead, how I approached is by humbly accepting whatever the wrong that has been done. If somebody points out something wrong for all the good reasons, well, you have to own up for it. I have to take the responsibility. So I'd always accept it and apologize and make sure that it doesn't happen again. And turning back to the team, they definitely hear a good 15 minutes of advising from me, for which they were all very, very understanding to make sure mistakes doesn't happen again. Because like I said in my story, luckily I was able to make them understand the mistake rather than just yelling at them.
Right. Now, we frequently hear that communication is the key to a leader. And we know that you are a good communicator, because for those of you who don't know, Chamatka won the first place in our speech contest conducted by our Speechcraft at our Toastmasters Club. So we know you are a good communicator. So from your experience, how can you relate to this fact that communication is essential to become a leader? What's your experience on that?
Communication when it comes to leading can happen in two ways. That's within your team and with the external parties. So I'll talk about the within your team part first. When communicating, it's not just talking that matters. You also have to listen. And by listening, I mean you have to listen to what your team is trying to tell, not what you want to hear from them. Because there is a big difference between listening to what is being said and listening to what you want to hear. And there are many occasions when resolving conflicts, when trying to explain a duty, there's a lot of instances where you need to communicate properly to the team, which I also highlighted during my story before. And when it comes to communicating with the external parties, we used a very simple trick to begin with. From the moment me and any of our prefects step into school, starting from the security guard at the gate, to the workers in school, to the teachers, to the principal, we always greeted with a smile, either good morning, good afternoon. And that really made a huge difference in building a good rapport between our prefects guild and the entire school. So whenever we had a project, whenever we put up a show, some talent show, anything, everybody was willing to help us because they knew us as the extremely trusted and the very nice prefects guild, which really helped us throughout our year.
Okay, one last question. That is, now you have listed so many societies and clubs in which you have been a part of. Actually, in your introduction, I took only part of it. So it takes a lot of time and effort, of course. So looking back at your school days, what have you gained from this investment for your life?
Well, I think everybody has different pleasures in life, different ways of going about life. And I was always the type to really enjoy doing a lot of things at the same time, balancing a lot of work at the same time. So by doing so, I have gained a lot of skills that books cannot give you. I have gained a lot of people in life, which doesn't come if you are just sitting somewhere and studying. And after all, being a leader is a big part of who I am. And I'm very happy and proud about who I am today. So being a leader has helped me to be who I am. And it is, I would be correct if I say it's the biggest part of which makes me who I am today. So I'm extremely glad I went through all that.
Right. Thank you, Chamatka. So another round of applause before we let her go. Thank you, Chamatka. Now you mentioned that you have picked up a lot of skills by being a leader. Now the next speaker is going to speak about skills. So let me introduce our third speaker, Kavishka Karunanayaka. Kavishka is a student of Vidura College and identifies himself as a writer, marketer, musician, speaker, and a photographer who measures life by the number of books he had read. He plays drums in the award-winning band Illuminate. He is a two-time finalist at the All Ireland Gavel Best Speaker contest, and he launched the Photographic Society in his school. Picking up new skills is his special thrill. But there's more to it. He has come to find that skills are what help him to serve both himself and the world. So please welcome Kalishka Karunanayaka. Many small skills, one big life. Over to you, Kalishka.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for that introduction, and a good afternoon to all of you here. I believe we have 80 plus people tuning into this, and I must say it's fabulous to see such a turn up for this new venture by Leaders of Tomorrow. Now, I feel like the concept of an online webinar is new, at least in Sri Lanka. So kudos to you who have decided to try out this strange new thing. The fact that we're doing this reminds me of my childhood. My father, on one hand, was always learning new subjects. The fact that he's an MBBS doctor who went on to get an MBA is testament to this. And my mother, on the other hand, was always trying out new experiences. Acrobatic yoga, trampoline workouts, whatever the latest craze was, she was first in line to give it a go. So one day they decided that this nerdish backwards kid, me, was due a few experiences. And what they did was they instilled in me a culture of continuous self-improvement. Here's what I did. First off, they let me read. It was not something they consciously did. It just happened. They didn't force me to do it because they are both voracious readers, even to this day. And whatever books they got, I got my hands on them soon after. Be it my father's medicine books or my mother's cookery books, whatever it was, I got addicted to reading. And I must say that there's no better way to absorb knowledge than through reading. More on that later. My parents then said, you've got reading down. Perfect. But you need to get out more. So they enrolled me, a kid who hadn't done so much as a single push-up in his entire life, into gymnastics. I went there for 3 weeks. On the 4th week, I tried to do a handstand. I slipped. I came home with a bandage on my head. And my parents said, fine, maybe something a bit lower octane. Their solution for this was swimming. They enrolled me in classes. Things were going fabulously. And I even made the squad. But the new swimming coach we got after a few months was a beast of a man. Whoever came last when we were doing laps around the pool got a nice hammering from the kickboard. And sadly, that last person was usually me. I came home with my back all red and with kickboard shaped marks all over me. And my parents agreed that maybe sports aren't my cup of tea. But they didn't give up on helping me continue to improve myself. Maybe my talents lay in the aesthetic field. They found this great art class for me. I tried it out. The teacher was great. She discussed everything from philosophy to life to current events, all at a level that a 10-year-old could understand. Still, I felt like art wasn't my thing. One day, I came home with paint all over my hands and on most of my clothes, and they switched me over to music. It was on a bright 2011 Saturday morning that my mother dragged me half asleep to band practice. All the noise soon woke me up, and they sat me down in front of this massive metal monstrosity called the trombone. I tried my best to play it for the better part of a month because I felt like music might be it. But when I started coming home with my lips swollen and blue from playing the trombone, my parents decided maybe I could go for something a bit more low-key. So they bought me a violin. I immediately decided that Eastern classical music, again, was not my thing. One day, I was in music class thinking of ways to bunk the boring period when I saw something that changed my life. They opened the doors and wheeled in a shining black drum kit. I fell in love like that. I asked if I could play it. The music teacher said yes. And in late 2012, I sat behind the drum kit for the very first time. Never did I think that one day I would get to sit behind a drum kit and perform at the Nelum Pokuna Stadium. So that was one wild journey. What started with me doing gymnastics peaked with me playing drums at the Nelum Pokuna. Neither I nor my parents saw the end game all those years back, but they knew one important thing. I'll make that my first challenge to you. actively seek out new skills, because one skill, just one, is enough to tip the balance and change your life. That being said, most of the time, one skill is just not enough. Sometimes you need to make your skills build upon your other skills, and that's what I've usually experienced. I joined the Gavel Club in 2014. It was basically Toastmasters for kids. I joined it as a painfully shy kid. I was the firstborn in my family and had been an only child for 5 years. I simply didn't do socializing. That was not my thing. So my father dragged me with a long face to this thing called a Gavel Club and essentially threw me in the deep end. Turned out these other kids actually weren't too bad. I made friends, worked for the club, and during the first year got elected as the vice president of public relations in the Gavel Club. And then exactly 1 year later, I got elected as the second president of CIPM Gavel Club. It was an amazing year where we got to see both the club and the members develop and grow. And I really do look back on it fondly. And then one day, all the wonderful gaveling experiences came to a screeching halt. Because you see, I had to close my book on the Gavel Club when I opened my books for the A-levels. It was a sad day for me and my gavel years. And honestly, looking back, I didn't even have to do it. I definitely could have balanced studies and gavel, but that's what my dumb self did all those years back. After O-levels, I finished. I didn't have much to do. I felt like the ship had already sailed on the Gavel Club, and I didn't particularly have any ideas about O-levels. And then one day, just out of randomness, my father brought home a DSLR camera. Those are the black, cool-looking cameras that the professionals use. My father has a standing policy that if you want to do something, learn how to do it from the experts and do it right. So he enrolled himself in a course at the Lionel Wendt offered by the Photographic Society of Sri Lanka. And he came home with some photos he'd taken. I was blown away. They look gorgeous. And I immediately decided that I want to do photography. So I got enrolled for the photography course along with 2 of my friends. I started taking photos at small events, family gatherings, basically anywhere someone asked me to do so. Eventually, I landed a photography gig at a speech contest done by my father's Toastmasters Club, Word Blasters Toastmasters Club. I covered the event as usual, but there was one difference. I left that evening feeling inspired. Speaking held this special allure for me, and once A-level started, I started speaking at my school, announcing, moderating, whatever it was. I worked hard and made myself the school's go-to guy. In the process, I found out that I had a love for writing. As I was writing speeches, I discovered that I could write. And when A-levels ended, I didn't have a clue what to do for my higher studies. Everyone was asking me what university I'd go to, whether I'd be a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer. It was like an A-level MCQ all over again. So just to shut everyone up, and because I had a bit of a rebellious streak, I decided I'd pick none of the above and start working. Luckily, one of my father's contacts, who was running a digital marketing company, was in need of a copywriter. I joined his little startup and started writing. Pretty soon, I started picking things up about digital marketing, content creation, and just a bunch of other digital skills. And when eventually I joined my father's Toastmasters Club, I joined with a wealth of skills covering a broad field. I'm happy to say that I've had the pleasure of launching the club into the digital age under this visionary project led by none other than our first speaker, Mr. Asel Jatunaraj. So this roller coaster ride of skills, photography, which led to speaking, which led to writing, which led to digital marketing, was a sequence of my skills building on top of each other. Photography taught me to look at the world with an artist's eye. Speaking gave me the confidence to make myself heard and to stand up for what I believe in. And writing gave me a profession that I'm truly excited about. So what I mean to say by this long fable is that skills don't stand alone. If you play your cards right, you can leverage your skills upon your other skills. So ladies and gentlemen, young and old, I leave you with a challenge. Get addicted. I want you to get addicted to learning and developing new skills. When I was a kid, I was so addicted to reading that once I read all the books we had, I'd go to the kitchen and start reading the ingredients on all the food wrappers. I want you to be that hungry for knowledge. Because the way I see it, there's absolutely no excuse for not continuously improving yourself. So starting today, pick up at least one skill that you've always wanted to try. Go to Google, enter the name, type free course, click enter, click on the results. Because in this day and age, you can definitely pick up whatever skill you need. And ladies and gentlemen, before you know it, those many small skills will have added up to make one big life. Moderator, over to you.
Right. So can we have another round of applause for our speaker, Kavishka? Right. So let me pose some questions to you as well. And of course, being your father, I know that you excelled in academics as well. You got 9 A's and all. So now, if I were to ask this question, now personally, how did you manage to balance your studies as well as this skill development activities?
Right. So thank you, moderator, for that question. So this balancing aspect, any balancing act needs two sides for the balance. Mine required some help from outside and a certain mindset from within. The first is, I'll talk about the outside, was my parents. Now, I am truly indebted to my father and my mother because, for example, when I was a drummer, drum practices, because they could conflict with my schoolwork, practices were in the late night. I'm talking about like 11, 12, even till 1, 2 in the morning. And whenever the practices were, my parents were always there to pick me up after practices. Sure, they weren't too happy about it and they made it known. I got an earful, but still they were there for me. They helped me out. And when I was feeling down, I remember for the very first concert I had, which was in grade 8, I was terribly out of practice. Basically, I just started drumming and our coach put me to play in a show. I was feeling horrible. I felt disgusted with myself. But when I talked to my parents, they sort of motivated. It's just a few words. They told me, you can do this. Maybe so what? So what if you're out of practice? You can still have a few weeks left. You can practice songs. You can do this. So that impetus my parents gave me truly helped. So I'd say from outside, that was one of the major things. The second thing was that, and this might be a bit I'm sorry, did I drop out for a second? I believe I dropped out. Right, cool. As I was saying, the very first important thing is that my parents. The second thing was that again, this might be a bit polarizing. I didn't go to tuition classes. Judge that how you will, but I simply didn't go to tuition classes for my O-levels, and for the better part of my A-levels, I simply did past papers, studied by myself. I helped myself study, and essentially that opened up a lot of free time. And that was from the outside influences. From within me, it was simply the fact that I realized all those extracurricular activities are as important as my studies. I didn't believe that the skill development was less important than studies. I knew those were equally important. And that really helped me, Mr. Moderator, to balance both the co-curriculars and the skill development.
Right. Going on to another question. As Steve Jobs once said, you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. So how has all these small skills helped you in real life?
Yes, right. So I believe this deserves a bit of a story. Now, as I was talking about the photography deal earlier, one day during A levels, it was during the second year of A levels, me and a few friends were seated around lunch discussing whether or not to start a photography club at the school. And since it was a new school, there wasn't even an idea of starting one. So the very next day, we went to the principal and asked him, "Sir, can we start a photography club?" And he immediately shut us down. This is literally what he said. He said, "I know you're going to take photos of all these girls and upload them to social media. I'll not let you do that in my school." So obviously, we were dumbstruck. We left the principal's room crestfallen, and for maybe a week we moped around totally depressed, no passion no passion for whatsoever. And eventually when we got our moods back in check, we again talked with each other and sat down and asked each other, what did we do wrong? And the answers that came up made us feel like idiots. First of all, it was not formal. There was no proposal, there was no proof of what we could do. And even worse, the principal didn't particularly trust us. We were just some kids coming up to him and asking him to start a club. So we decided to use our skills and try to change his mind. First off, I wrote a smashing proposal that that I thought would really compel the principal first, and then I used all the PR skills I got at Gavel Club to basically interact with the teachers, with the principals, build the trust between them, do all of that. And we even did some photography work for the school. And then eventually, after having all of that, when we went to the principal, he asked us, why didn't you come here sooner? So it's a matter of using all those skills together to get whatever you want. That is what I believe is a very prominent example from my life, moderator. How about you?
Right. One last thing.
Yes.
Now, these days we have so much of extra time because of curfews and lockdowns and whatnot. So it would be very useful to the listeners, especially the youngsters, to know what sort of new skills you're working on these days.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. There's actually quite a few. I'll start with the more work-related ones because I plan to find a career in communication and digital marketing. There are a ton of free courses offered by Facebook, Google, even LinkedIn. If you're into marketing or social media management, anything at all, if you're interested in that, you can definitely go to those websites and get some free courses. So first off, I'm actually getting educated on marketing and digital media content creation. And there's a nice website called HubSpot Academy, which actually gives you verifiable qualifications on a host of subjects that you might be interested in. So that's the high-end stuff. Also, as a matter of personal interest, I'm learning languages. I am learning French. I plan to learn Spanish, and I'm also enrolled for a course on sign language, which hasn't started yet, but I'm really looking forward to that. So I just find it fascinating to be able to communicate with people. So that's a personal interest of mine. And because, learning languages really keeps your brain on point, it keeps your mind sharp. I'm really enthusiastic about that. And again, I'm doing just reading around on graphic designing and a few things on programming, networking, things like that. So it's a mishmash of things, honestly. But what I like to point out here is that you're never going to know what skill you need until you need it. If you have it, you will be absolutely happy that you have it. If not, then that's your loss. So right now, I don't see what the benefit would be of what I'm doing here, but I know that someday it will definitely come in handy. So kids, Duolingo for languages, Google stuff if you want to learn skills. There's more than enough ways for you to basically gather as many skills as you can during this time, where time is of the abundance. Moderator?
Right. So we will finish off the formal sessions with that. So can we have a round of applause for the speaker? Right. Now, yes, now I'm getting some very interesting questions. So let me turn to one of the questions which I have received from our good friend, Toastmaster Lalit Manage. He says, that leaders cry alone, they say. What are the moments in your leadership experience where you have cried? Chamatka.
I would like to disagree with that sentiment. Leaders cry alone. That is if you're that dictator type of leader who doesn't want to show your vulnerability to others. In my style of leadership, it was quite different. And that's one of the main things I really like about it, because I was able to share whatever the difficulty with my team, especially like the immediate three after me. That's my deputy head girl and the games captain, as well as the deputy games captain. We're called the top four in our prefects board. So whatever happens, I was able to discuss it with them. Okay, let's not brag here, but I don't want to lie. So I'd say there's two specific incidents that I cried because of something that happened. One was when we received an anonymous the principal received an anonymous email talking wrong things about the prefect board, which was everything was false basically. And there was another incident where, for mistaking a teacher for another teacher, like a bunch of teachers got really mad about it and went against the whole prefects guild. Very silly two incidents. But why I felt like crying was not because I was sad, because there's nothing to be sad about, because it wasn't a big deal. Why I was crying was because I was so mad that people are just pointing fingers at our guild for no apparent reason. So at those times, how I found my strength is by talking to my team. Of course, one incident was a very classified incident, so I couldn't share it with anyone. I could only share it with my deputy. So the strength I gained by discussing it with them made sure that I could stand up for my guild when I had to answer the questions of the principal and the teachers. And I'm very proud to say that all of those situations, I've been successful into restoring the name.
Right. So basically what you're trying to say is, if you are with your team, if you look after your team well, the leader will not be required to cry alone.
Yes.
The team will be there to share your sorrow with you.
Yes, definitely.
Good. And to us, there was a question. Basically, like something which everybody would ask: how to get good results in your exams? So I know it's a vast area, but maybe a few points, because we have a lot of youngsters who are having these days not exam, but when they go back to school, they will start off with the exams, as I know. So maybe 2 or 3 points which has come handy to you.
Well, a good question. So first point I'd like to say is like accept failures, because for example, I can remember when I was in grade 12, my first term test physics marks were like 52 or something like that, pretty low, or 40s, I can't really remember. But then like after like working hard and hard, sometimes it dropped to 40s, sometimes I got 60s, but by grade 13 I was able to get it up for maybe 70s. So like nothing comes easy. You have to realize that first of all, and the parents also have to realize this first of all. You have to put some effort. There will be some downs and ups, and if you face them, only you can go forward. That's something. Another thing is, of course, as I mentioned, find what works for you. Studying methods, time of studying methods, those are unique to you. So just find a method that will work for you and use that. And of course, as they say, all study and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So yeah, even I believe that. So like, at least have one extracurricular or some activity that you are interested in, because if you do only studying, you can never get things right. At maybe music, something. Just have something along with the studies and balance it out. Otherwise, it will be too stressful. Yeah, that's pretty much it, I guess.
Right. Chamatka seems like the favorite for questions. I'll come to you later. So I have a very interesting one for Kavishka. This is from one of my friends, Upendra. Kavishka, your unique skill set seems like you are a jack of all trades, but hope you are a master of at least one. What is that skill you are a master of?
Right. So this saying, first of all, I just to dissect that, jack of all trades, master of one. The original statement, which was used all those years ago, it's been now chopped off to serve some capitalistic purpose. Not going to talk about that. But the original sentence, the original saying was jack of all trades, master of none, is still better than a master of one. So you don't have to push to be a master of everything if you are decently competent in a scope. But at the same time, to answer your question, specifically, I'd like to address myself as a communicator. I'm a fan of communicating, be it writing, marketing, languages, whatever. My one trade, I'd say, is communicating. So I hope I answered your question, Upendra, and moderator.
Right. Right. Okay, so now let me get back to another question posed to Chamatkar. Right, so this is from Yashmi, who was, I think, one of the speech crafters we had. I think in your batch, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Why do we feel very uncomfortable when we become a leader that we have to fulfill all these responsibilities? So what she's saying is sometimes you get uncomfortable when you have many responsibilities. So how have you managed that? Like carrying all these, not only the head prefect, you are the Dhamma school girl guy, a lot of responsibilities upon your shoulders. How do you manage that difficulty or the feeling of uncomfortableness?
Okay, so trust me when I say this, I really like that feeling of feeling a lot of responsibilities, but I know it's my nature, but it's not everybody's nature. So the main thing how you can handle it is you have to build, again, most important thing is to build trust among the team and get to know your team. And then you realize that there are so many different skills among your team. So when you come across with different tasks, you don't need to take responsibility on your own. The best thing is to divide it among the team and make sure the person who's responsible for that particular task is follow up and make sure that person does it. So your responsibility is make sure everybody keeps up to their responsibilities, if you put it simply. So always segregate all the tasks, and that would make life so much easier.
Right. So as questions coming one after another to you, right? Let me take one more.
Okay.
This is from Mr. Abhishankar. Right. So basically what he says is, can you highlight some inputs for the youth? Like what sort of habits that they should give up? That is what they should not do. Because we spoke a lot about what they should be doing. So that's a very pertinent question. Now, as youngsters, what should they not do to be a leader and to be a successful person at school?
One main thing is you shouldn't be. This is a very strict policy of mine. You shouldn't tell tales or tell bad things about a particular person with others. That will ruin your reputation completely. That if you're someone who does that, you won't be able to gain trust or any sort of respect. So one thing you shouldn't be doing is never speak ill of others. If you have a problem with someone, just walk up to that person without hurting his or her feelings. Tell, okay, there's this habit of yours that really irritates me. Like, how can we come into terms with it? And you can't, another thing that you shouldn't be doing is you can't always expect others to give something when you're not giving anything back. Always seek for opportunities to do something for the others. By doing that, you would always get the support when you need it. There's so many ill habits you can you have to put away if you want to be a successful leader. But I think those two are like the main things you must do in order to build trust and build a good brand.
Okay, there was another part. Now, I will open this question for all three of you. We can take turns. That is, now all of you have been doing so many things. So at one point you have to sacrifice certain things, because you can't do everything which comes to your mind to do all these things, to become a leader, or as Asel has done and as Kavishka has done. So you have to say no to certain things. So what are the sacrifices or things which you have said no in order to do what you wanted? We'll start with Chamatka again.
Okay. I was engaged in a lot of
I
extracurricular.
think her connection is a little bit weak. I'll move on to Asel.
Yeah, so like even though I told you that I was not much into sports, there was a time when I did some swimming, badminton, not as a competitive sport, but just keep me engaged. But when I went for O levels and all, I had to give them up. And reading was like a huge passion of mine. But after doing A levels and getting those massive textbooks and other books, having to read them, I had to let go of that habit unwillingly. So like that, there were certain sacrifices I had to make.
Right. So, which means even the things which you enjoy at a certain stage of your life, maybe you might have to put it aside because the priorities change. So, what's your take on that, Kavishka? What sacrifices have you made? What things have you let go?
Yes, the most heartbreaking thing that I've done is giving up on my drumming career, on my band career, to focus on my A levels. I was at my peak when I had to stop, like right after A levels. All my teachers were pressuring me, telling me that I couldn't do this. Maybe they were right, but not wasting as a short, but reaching the exam after 2 years only to find that you didn't do good was not a risk I was willing to take personally. So I closed the book on drumming, and as Asli mentioned, again, reading. Sadly, I'm only just picking up reading after like a 2-year hiatus. But the important thing here is it's fine to sacrifice stuff, right? If you have a priority, good. If there's something you like doing and there's a high priority, sacrifice it, fine. But I actually started drumming again. I started going to classes. I was terribly out of practice. I'm not in a band, but I am going to classes. Reading, I am buying books for myself and I'm reading. So it's fine to sacrifice your passions for some priority, but at the same time, remember, don't let your passions just fade away. Go back to your passions, rekindle the embers, because those are what you live for. So it's fine to sacrifice. Simply remember, don't let them go. So, moderator. Right. Chamatka, would you like to add on to this topic of sacrifices and in the pursuit of goals?
I agree with you when you say we must learn to prioritize. I have this habit of writing down my priorities. I used to do it in a weekly basis, and I also have like a main outlook of what I need to prioritize the most. So I end up giving a lot of attention to the top 3 to 5, and along the way, some things I gave up was basically sports. That's something I don't know whether I'm good at, because I always had to stop it. Because, for example, I was doing rowing at school, and it's a sport. When you are doing a sport at a school level, you need to go for practices like 3 days a week and morning sessions. A lot of time you need to dedicate for sports. I sacrificed that in order to do so many other club activities, to engage in other societies. So I had to sacrifice that. And I did sacrifice a good part of studying for my A levels, because I was the head girl of the school, which was my priority because it was my responsibility as the head girl. So it's all about prioritizing.
Right. Thank you very much, the 3 panelists, Asel, Chamatka, and Kavishka. So one thing which I really want to do is to start on time and end on time. So we had set this as a 90-minute session. So we are coming close. We have only 2-3 minutes left. So what I will do is I will not take up more questions. I will just wrap up the basic thoughts that were shared so that you can take it home. First, if I take Asel, the main point that he was trying to make is that first thing is whatever you are doing, you compete with yourself. Compete with yourself in the sense, try to be better than who you were yesterday. Tomorrow to be slightly better than who you are now. So that is the entire philosophy of becoming successful. And along the line, he mentioned a few more things about how he made up his mind to go back to his studies after missing medicine by 0.01 marks. So it would have been devastating. So that's the highlight of Asel's message. And once again, we'll give a round of applause to Asel. Asel, thank you being a part of this session. Well done.
Thank you, everyone.
So let's move on to the second speaker, Chamatka. Even though she's the daughter of one of my very good friends, I got to know her closely when she came to follow our Speechcraft program. And the day she walked in, I knew this girl has enormous amounts of talent. So I and the club has to make use of that talent. So that's why I'm dragging her into all these things to come to our meetings, Toastmasters, all these things, because I know the potential that she has. So the basic thought that she was trying to convey is taking up leadership positions. So there are youngsters who are 13, 14, 15. So at school, get into all the leadership positions that is practically available to you. All the clubs and societies, being a prefect, sports. So at the end of the day, when you are 45, 50, 80% of your success will depend on what you have done outside your classroom, not in the class. So what you have done outside, being a prefect, being in sports, speaking, whatever, that will account for 80% of your success when you are 45, 50. So don't lose that opportunity. Yes, you might miss a couple of chances, couple of opportunities, or maybe a little bit of studies, but try to balance both. I'm not saying to give up studies. In no way I say that. But I always say, even to my kids, is a degree is a basic qualification for the next generation. If you don't have a degree, you are nobody. Because now, when you go out to the world of employment, masters is nothing. Everybody has it. In a few years, it will be a doctorate. Everyone will have a doctorate. So if you don't have a degree, you are nobody. So have your plans or goals focused on that. And in the meantime, get into all these leadership positions, as Chamatka mentioned, so that you can have a fulfilling, complete, wholesome life. Can I have a round of applause for Chamatka as well? Finally, Kavishka. Actually, I am proud to say that I've been a part of your life. As the saying goes, maybe sometime earlier when I went to school to something, they might show you and say, that is Prabhat's son. So now they will come and say, that is Kavishka's father. So I'm proud to be your father, yes. And so the point that you have brought up, those little skills, all of you, all the kids who are out there, now this is the perfect time for you. I know all of you are on the internet. I know nobody can say I'm not on the internet. All of you are on the internet, but don't be on Facebook, don't be on Insta, don't waste your data, don't waste your parents' data, but use it for a useful purpose, like what Kavishka mentioned. Actually, now only I realize what is doing with all this nighttime data after 12 o'clock. So use the data for a valuable purpose. And because as he said, there are so many courses online, free courses, right? So you can expand on something, a language, anything, so that you can be better. So round of applause for Kavishka as well. Right. So this brings us to this our first attempt by Leaders of Tomorrow to take our leadership training to your doorsteps, because we can't ask you to come to our training programs. We don't know till when. So we are coming to you. So we will be running a lot of programs, a lot of things like this, or maybe on a fortnightly basis. So watch out for my messages, watch out for my Facebook. So you can like our Facebook page, the Leaders of Tomorrow Facebook page. So there are a lot of interesting material. And what I will do is I'm going to get the scripts from the speakers and put this up on LinkedIn as an article. So I will share that link with you also. And finally, we will share with you a feedback form or Google form. We are in the process of creating that. Within the next couple of hours, we will send the link to you through email as well as WhatsApp. So please go to the feedback form and give us your honest opinion, because we want to give something back, and we want to make this even better. So this is the end of empowering the next generation. While using three panelists, young panelists, and giving them a chance to empower themselves, I hope that we have shared enough knowledge to you all to empower yourselves and be better individuals who will serve the society. So I will wrap it up. So once again, before we move, and we'll take that screenshot, right?
Yes, screenshot.
Yes.
And also there's
Yeah,
one question I'm getting before the screenshot, just one question, moderator, that I'm getting a lot in the private chat to me. Am I bringing up? Okay, clear? I'm getting a lot of questions asking me what the websites I mentioned were. So just so you know, one of the most broad ones is HubSpot Academy. I'll share that in the chat. It's HubSpot Academy. The app for learning languages is Duolingo. And there are also courses offered by Facebook, Google, and LinkedIn. So I'll drop all of that in the chat, just so you know. Those are the resources that I recommend if you want to learn pretty much anything. I'll drop everything in the chat.
Right. So we will take a group a screenshot. So all of you can give a victory sign. Victory sign. So Kavishka will take it, right? The screenshot. Asel, can you take it?
Looks like something is up with my computer. Like.
Okay. So okay, hold on. Then I will wait. Right. I took one. Then I'll hold on. I'll move to the next group, next set of people. Okay. I am taking. Hold on. I'm not very good at this. Kavishka, you're okay. Fine. So I took one. So we will call it a day. Thank you very much, and wait for the instructions for the feedback form. I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right. See you at the next program we are doing, maybe in 10 days, 15 days time.
Right. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. I'll be ending the meeting now.